July 3rd, 2014, Fairfield, Illinois. A quiet, rural town, the kind of place where everyone knows everyone, and nothing bad ever happens. But that night, a 15-year-old girl vanished without a trace. No signs of struggle, no witnesses, just an empty house, and a growing fear that something terrible had happened. Her name was Megan Nichols, and what began as a missing person report would slowly unfold into one of the most disturbing and heart-wrenching cases this town had ever seen. This is her story, and the dark truth that took years to uncover. Megan Nichols was born on September 17, 1998. At 15 years old, she was a typical high school sophomore, shy, intelligent, and deeply close to her mother, Kathy Jo. She loved reading, drawing, and singing. She wasn't rebellious, she wasn't wild. She was, by every account, a good girl. But Megan, like many teenagers, had begun exploring the boundaries of her world. She had a boyfriend her mother disapproved of, Brody Merbarger, then 18 years old. The relationship was intense and emotional, and it was causing tension between Megan and Kathy Jo. Despite her youth, Megan was dealing with adult emotions, love, fear, and the pressure to keep secrets. And those secrets would soon become central to her disappearance. On July 3, 2014, Kathy Jo returned home around 11 p.m. Megan was gone. Her purse, her phone, and her bike were missing. But there were no signs of forced entry, no struggle, just a handwritten note left on the bed that read, "I love you, Mom. I'm sorry." It was a note that would haunt Kathy Jo for years. At first, it seemed like Megan had run away, but something didn't sit right. Her bank account hadn't been touched. Her social media was silent. No contact with friends. Days passed, then weeks. And with each passing moment, hope began to fade. Fairfield police treated the case as a runaway initially, but Kathy Jo insisted this wasn't like Megan. She would never leave without staying in touch. She wouldn't abandon her life. Investigators turned their attention to Megan's phone records, which led them to Brody Merbarger. He was quickly identified as a person of interest. Megan had been texting him the night she disappeared, but Brody claimed he hadn't seen her. Still, police searched his car and apartment. They found nothing conclusive. No body, no crime scene, no arrest. The case went cold for 3 long years. Kathy Jo never gave up. She distributed flyers, held vigils, kept Megan's story alive. But behind closed doors, she was breaking. The grief of not knowing, the empty chair at the dinner table, the unanswered birthday wishes, it was unbearable. Fairfield moved on. Megan's case became another missing file. Until 2017, when a grim discovery changed everything. On December 26, 2017, over 3 years after Megan disappeared, skeletal remains were discovered in a remote area near Wayne County. They were later confirmed to be Megan Nichols. The cause of death? Homicide, but the exact means? Undetermined. Suddenly, Megan's case was no longer a mystery. It was a murder. The community was shocked, but for Kathy Jo, the grief deepened. Her worst fear was confirmed, but justice still seemed out of reach. Who did this to Megan, and why? With Megan's remains found, investigators re-examined Brody Merbarger. They had already searched his property once, but this time forensic technology had improved. New evidence surfaced, inconsistencies in his alibi, DNA anomalies, messages that seemed ominous in retrospect. Detectives discovered journal entries and digital notes that hinted at Brody's obsession with Megan. Some described controlling behaviors. Others painted a picture of a relationship built on manipulation and power. He was brought in for questioning again, This time, his confidence seemed to crack. His story changed, and with every inconsistency, the pressure mounted. In 2020, 6 years after Megan disappeared, a grand jury indicted Brody Merbarger for first-degree murder. The charges were based on a combination of digital forensics, phone location data, and behavioral analysis. Prosecutors alleged that Brody lured Megan out of her home, killed her, and dumped her body miles away, in an area he was known to visit. The theory: Megan had tried to end the relationship, and Brody couldn't handle rejection. The trial opened in 2022. Prosecutors laid out a chilling narrative of control, deception, and murder. They called on experts, forensic pathologists, digital analysts, and behavioral psychologists. One expert testified that Megan's body had been in that field for years, intentionally placed, perhaps even buried at first, then uncovered by erosion and time. The defense argued that the evidence was circumstantial, that Brody had moved on with his life, that no one saw him with Megan that night, but the jury wasn't convinced. In October 2022, Brody Merbarger was found guilty of first-degree murder. The judge sentenced him to 50 years to life in prison, without the possibility of parole for at least 40 years. Kathy Jo sat quietly during the verdict, clutching a photo of her daughter. Her expression was unreadable, a mixture of relief, grief, and the weight of 6 years of agony. In the aftermath, Kathy Jo began speaking publicly about the red flags often ignored in teen relationships: emotional manipulation, isolation, threats disguised as love. She advocates for early education on healthy relationships, not just in homes, but in schools. Megan's story, she says, isn't just about one tragedy, it's a warning, because Megan wasn't the only one. Statistics show that 1 in 3 teens in the U.S. will experience some form of dating abuse, and in many cases, the danger goes unnoticed until it's too late. Critics of the original investigation pointed to several missteps. The Fairfield Police Department initially treated Megan's case as a teenage runaway, delaying crucial actions, like issuing an Amber Alert or conducting an immediate forensic sweep of her room. Had these been done in the first 48 hours, valuable clues may have surfaced. Instead, evidence was potentially lost, and the trail went cold. Kathy Jo would later say, "If they had listened to me from day one, we might have found her sooner, or found the person responsible faster." Brody Merbarger had no prior criminal record, but interviews with former friends and acquaintances revealed disturbing patterns. He was described as controlling, jealous, and intensely secretive. Some reported incidents of emotional outbursts and manipulation in previous relationships. A psychological profile by experts suggested narcissistic traits, a need for control, hypersensitivity to rejection, and an inability to empathize with others. It painted a chilling portrait of someone who could become violent when feeling powerless. After the sentencing, Kathy Jo created the Megan Nichols Foundation, a nonprofit dedicated to raising awareness about teen dating violence and providing resources for families of missing children. She speaks at schools, town halls, and law enforcement events. Her message is clear: don't wait, don't ignore the signs. If your gut tells you something is wrong, it probably is. Her efforts have inspired legislative proposals in Illinois to improve missing teen response protocols. Megan's story is now part of law enforcement training modules in several counties. What if the unanswered questions? Despite the conviction, many questions remain unanswered. Was anyone else involved? Did Brody act alone? Were there earlier warning signs that even Megan herself missed? True crime investigators continue to explore Brody's timeline, movements, and digital records. Kathy Jo still wonders if someone helped him, or knew, and stayed silent. These lingering questions keep the case alive, not as a mystery but as a reminder. Not every story ends cleanly. Not every truth is fully known. Megan Nichols was only 15. Her life was just beginning, and though justice was finally served, the pain remains. Her story reminds us that behind every headline is a family shattered, a life lost, and a truth we must never ignore. This was the case of Megan Nichols. May she never be forgotten.